This is the airport qualification program for Guantanamo Bay Naval Station, Cuba. This video is provided to agencies and personnel outside DoD as information only. Viewers are cautioned that this video represents the airfield and airfield hazards at Guantanamo Bay as known on the date the video was made. DoD makes no representation as to the accuracy of this information and does not warrant any information contained in this video for any use whatsoever. All viewers of this video, both DoD and outside agencies, are reminded that proper and thorough pre-flight planning using the most up-to-date publications and sufficient judgment is the responsibility of the aircrew. Guantanamo Bay is located on the southeastern coast of the island of Cuba. Possible alternate airfields to use when flying to Guantanamo include Roosevelt Roads Naval Station, Puerto Rico, Norman Manley International in Kingston, Jamaica, and Homestead Air Force Base, Florida. Guantanamo Bay has one runway, runway 1028. Runway 1028 is 8,000 feet long by 200 feet wide. Field elevation is 56 feet MSL. Runway 28 is the preferred landing runway. Prevailing winds from the east and south will often dictate a runway 10 arrival. If this is the case, the Guantanamo West airspace must be activated on the air crew's request. However, pilots should check the AMC Summary of Airfield Restrictions for tailwind limit waivers for your aircraft type. If a runway 28 approach is possible, it should be considered the preferred approach. Since overflight of the Cuban landmass is prohibited, aircraft will avoid any overflight of Cuba until within the boundaries of the Naval Airspace Reservation. Aircraft will be VFR once they enter Havana FIR. Normal routing from Miami Oceanic Airspace will be via Baigon, East Point, then westward toward Guantanamo, remaining at least 6 miles from the Cuban coast. Pilots should consult the flip en route supplement for the Caribbean and South America, Section C, for arrival and departure routings. Once your aircraft is maneuvered toward Guantanamo Bay, use caution to remain within the U.S. reservation boundaries and avoid penetrating Cuban airspace. The Guantanamo Bay Naval Reservation is bordered by a fence line which passes within 3/4 of a mile of the approach end of runway 10. The fence line is marked by a high-intensity strobe light where the fence meets the coastline. Be sure not to mistake the outer fence line, shown here in red, for the reservation border. This fence line is well within Cuban territory.
Yeah, I head just for the tip of this landmass there on the right. I want to start your final turn a little bit early because sometimes you have a little bit of a tailwind landing on 28.
When using runway 28 for landing, fly northward to establish a left base for runway 28, avoiding overflight of the radar site on windward point.
Eight knots on a tail.
Flat split.
Okay.
Align yourself with the runway and anticipate a tailwind on final and the tendency to fly a lower than normal final over the water.
Reference speed 139. Not too much. Landing on this runway, you got a nice long final.
Use caution for a wind change as you pass over the cliffs on short final. If a go-around is necessary, an immediate turn to the left will be required to avoid overflying Cuban territory. In cases where winds dictate a runway 10 approach, confirm Guantanamo West airspace activation with Miami Center as soon as possible. The Guantanamo West procedure is a VFR-only procedure. At Point Alpha, enter a right downwind for runway 10. Cross the border of Guantanamo Bay Naval Station at or below 2,000 feet and plan to remain within 4 DME of the Guantanamo VOR. Turn right to align the aircraft with the coastline on a 3-mile angling final approximately 20 degrees off runway centerline. Remain over water until passing the western border of the Guantanamo Bay U.S. Naval Station. This border is identified by the inner fence line approximately 3/4 of a mile west of the runway and a guard tower on the coastline marked by a high-intensity white strobe light. This fence line, along with the guard tower and high-intensity strobe light, are the best visual references for the runway 10 approach. The following cautions should be observed during the Guantanamo West procedure. Pilots must remain VFR during the entire procedure. Air crews must ensure they identify the proper fence line that separates Cuba from the U.S. Naval Reservation. Pilots should fly south of or directly over the high-intensity strobe light while aligning the aircraft on final. This will avoid overflight of the active minefields located on both sides of the fence line. Use caution when making heading adjustments on short final in close proximity to the ground. It may be necessary to cross the threshold at higher than normal heights. Pilots operating aircraft with high approach speeds will need to exercise discretion when determining bank angles and speeds appropriate for this challenging turn to final. This concludes the airport qualification program for Guantanamo Bay, Cuba. For the most up-to-date information, consult your flight information publications, NOTAMs, and summary of airfield restrictions. This video is intended to be used as a supplemental training aid for initial and recurrent air crew orientation to the Guantanamo Bay flying environment. It does not replace proper pre-flight planning, nor does it list all the hazards or unusual situations that might be encountered at Guantanamo. Do not use this video as a comprehensive procedural directive, but rather as a guide for determining safe flight operations for your type of aircraft.